Good evening. 7:05 PM. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for January 2nd, 2019. Happy New Year to everybody. Tonight we don't have our name tags, so I'll briefly review our members. To my far right, Bob Luciano, Associate Member. Devin Howe, Full-Time Member. Medora Champagne, Associate Member. Vice Chairman Mike Kaliza. To my left, Joe Sebastiano, Full Member. Don Hanson, Full Member. And our Administrative Assistant, Amy. Welcome, everybody. First order of business is the Enclave, which has been, will be continued until 2/6/19. So could I have a motion to continue the hearing for the Enclave until 2/6/19 at 7 PM?
So moved.
You have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. By the way, this meeting is being audio and video recorded per the open meeting laws of the state of Massachusetts. It's 7:05 PM, and we're going to continue the public hearing for 9 Fruit Street. Just to refresh the members, this is a special permit for conversion of a single-family dwelling. Mr. Brogan was going to provide us at this meeting, which he has, some plan views as well as some elevation views of the property. We also, I think it was Devin asked at the last meeting if we could speak to town council with regard to this bylaw, and I think, Amy, you included in the packages for most members, or do they have it?
No.
Okay. Basically, Dave DeLuca responded back that yes, that you can put an addition onto an existing home, and the addition does not have to be done prior to the bylaw. In other words, so it could be done after, and I think that was your question. I do have a copy of it here, which I'll pass out to members if you'd like to take a look at it, but that was in response to Devin's question. I'll remind the board, remember, we have a specific task here. Our bylaw basically says that the resulting dwelling must be 800 square feet minimum. It must provide sanitary and lavatory facilities. The changes to the exterior, if there are changes, must conform to the single-family character of the neighborhood, and that it must be prior to our bylaw incorporation. The house must exist prior to the incorporation of our bylaw, which I think we've already satisfied that. The house was built in 1961, so we know that was met. Building code and fire codes are handled through the building permit process. They are not our purview. We can certainly ask questions, but again, sizes of windows, things like that, those will be handled during the building permit process by the building commissioner, and when the applicant, if he is awarded a special permit, would obviously have to meet all fire codes for a duplex going from a single-family home. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Brogan, who has provided, I think everybody has his handout.
Yes.
Mr. Brogan, welcome back.
All right. Thank you. This on? Yep. So the plans are there. That's the intention, to build a 2-car garage with the apartment above. I think that was all you had asked for at the time. So
Mike,
if the board has any questions, I'd be more than glad to answer them. I think it's pretty straightforward.
Mike, according to my calculations, it looks like it's going to be 28 by 36 with a garage under, and then obviously the second floor will be the living space. Is it going to have 1 bath?
Yep, 1 bath, 1 bed.
Okay. Questions from the board?
Chris, just a sort of a clarification. So, to get an understanding of this, does this mean that any house, presuming it was constructed at the appropriate time frame, can be converted to from a single family to a 2-family house? Or do multifamily homes need to be in a particular section in town? So could you take, just for an example, could you take, there's a section of this town where you have a $2 million house. Could that $2 million become a two-family house at some point in time?
If it was built prior to the bylaw and could meet the conditions of the special permit, yes.
The answer is yes, okay.
Yeah, I think Dave DeLuca, his only comment was that he would advise the board not to allow for destruction of single-family homes and reconstruction to two families and moving the footprint. That's something that I've actually passed on to Rich, who, and hopefully in the May town meeting, might address some changes to the bylaws to tighten them up a little bit and to eliminate some, to add more clarity to what can and can't be done. But yes, any house that was constructed prior to the bylaw. And again, there's an expense associated with it. It's not as if you just convert your house to a two-family. Obviously, you've got to make sure you meet the provisions, so. But yeah, any house built prior to the bylaw.
Okay,
There is no zones in town.
those zones.
Our
Okay.
residential zones all out.
Okay. Does that, and just, again, another, maybe a little bit of a ridiculous question, but what about going from a two-family to a three-family to a four-family, or is this strictly just from one to two-family homes?
Our bylaw only allows the 1 to 2 family. We've had some instances where we have some that have actually appeared before this board who felt that they had 3-family already existing or 4-family already existing that hadn't been recorded. But this conversion is only for single-family to 2-family.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just have a general question. In looking at that, I assume that the setbacks meet all of the normal conditions of setbacks for the new structure, as far as the setbacks to the side and the front.
I would ask the applicant.
Yeah, by a huge margin.
So all the setbacks are met.
100%.
Okay.
So just so I understand, based on my understanding of the bylaws, somebody can put a garage, which is not defined as in our bylaws, it's defined as an accessory structure, correct?
An accessory structure would be separate from a house.
What is a garage defined as then, in our bylaws? I was looking for it earlier.
Single-family dwelling.
No, a garage.
If it's detached from the house, it's an accessory building. If it is attached to the house, it's a single-family dwelling.
A garage?
If it's attached to the house, it's considered a single-family dwelling.
Part of a single-family dwelling. It's part of a single-family dwelling if it's attached.
Only if it's unattached is it an
It's an accessory, yeah.
So our bylaws allow for the building of a garage attached to a single-family dwelling, thereby making it part of that single-family dwelling, as long as proper setbacks are met. Is that correct?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
The next question. Our bylaws allow for that house is in an R1 district
Right.
to, in effect, it could be raised up to 30, whatever it is, 35 feet in terms of whether it be making it a two-family or just a renovation. It could be raised to 35 feet, which is our limit in the R1 district, correct? Okay.
Yes.
So I guess what I find difficult, but I did see the Attorney Luca's comments, okay, I find difficult to internalize is the garage is being attached to the house, which then makes it an extension of the existing single-family dwelling. And the living quarters is on top of only the garage, which the attachment and the garage were not built before 61. Now, I understand what Mr. DeLuca has said, and I respect our town attorney. I just find it difficult to put all that together. The applicant can put a garage on his existing structure anytime he wants. He doesn't need a special permit.
Correct.
So he puts a attachment, and then now it's become a
So.
extension of the
so-
single,
my-
extension of the existing dwelling. And then, based on E24, all right, he can, in fact, convert a single-family dwelling, which was in existence at the time of the adoption of this bylaw, which he can do that, to accommodate no more than 2 families. That's really where we are, and that's what Mr. DeLuca has
Correct.
confirmed.
Correct.
Chris, just to also to confirm, that this, I mean, obviously we can see this, but it doesn't have, at least I don't see any, oh, I see, does that say 958 square feet? Is that what that second floor, is the living space is
Right.
958 square feet?
Yeah.
Yes,
I
sir.
think it's 1,008 square feet on each floor.
Yeah, it's 1,008.
Yeah.
Chris, I have a question. I'm not sure if I've asked this before, but are there any other multifamily dwellings near this 9 Fruit Street?
I'd ask the applicant.
So like in the neighborhood, are there any other,
There's a ton of in-laws, but I don't know. I think there's only, honestly, I think there's only 7 or 8 in the town.
Yeah. There's not very many, we don't have a lot of two-family, active two-family homes in Norfolk. On that street, I think is there 5 or 6 homes on that street to begin with? On your section?
There's only 3.
Yeah, there's not very many homes on that street. There's, I don't know, I hope everybody's had a chance, but it's the intersection between Cleveland
Yep.
and Seekonk. And there's the house, 9 Fruit Street, the one next to yours, and then I think there's one across the street. And that's about it. So there's not a lot of homes on Fruit Street. And I think the important thing, and it brings up what Don said, I think one of the reasons, because if you look at it, 800 square feet prior to the bylaw, sanitary and laboratory facilities, these are very easy to check off. It's the last one, which is, no exterior changes are made which in the judgment of the board do not conform to single-family character of the neighborhood. And that goes to what Don said, but also goes to what Bob said, is suddenly someone builds, a garage that's 60 by 80, and even though they have the setbacks, and suddenly they've built this monstrosity, which doesn't conform to a neighborhood. So I think that's the important thing for this board, once we get into deliberations. I think right now, remember, we are trying to get fact-finding and information is, does it conform to the neighborhood? Does this conform to a single-family neighborhood? Does it look out of place? Or does it look like it conforms to a single-family neighborhood? And that really becomes one of our key points here, is to judge that and come up with that answer.
but one of the other criteria of the special permit is the use has to also conform.
When you say the use,
The use from a single-family dwelling to a multifamily dwelling.
when you say the use, anybody's allowed to do it in
Well,
our
the-
district. So there's no reason, when you say use.
Well, in the bylaw, I didn't see anything that said you can't have a multifamily dwelling in the R district unless your house was built prior to the bylaw, correct?
No, you can only convert it if it was built prior to the bylaw.
Yes, you can only convert it.
Right.
But if your house was built.
If you want to build a two-family home in Norfolk,
Yeah,
yes, you can still do that. Yes. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, you can still do that.
So, I guess that.
Go ahead.
Of course you can.
Yeah.
I can, so 2 things, guys. I can take an empty lot and put a 2-family on it, all right? It has the same setbacks. But to get to your point, I can build this garage with the room over it without coming in front of this board. I can go over to Bob Bullock and get a permit to build this garage just like you see it on paper. No problem. And then all I'm asking the board for is to make it an apartment above it. So I can build it tomorrow and come back to the board, but I want to build the fire separation between the 2-family at this point. I don't want to have to take it apart. That's all I'm looking for. I can build that tomorrow, just like it is. It's not changing the character. I'm building a 2-car garage with a room over. It's the same roof lines, it's the same everything. Nothing is, so I don't have to come in front of the board to build that structure. What I have to come in front of the board for is to make the inside a second family. You get
No,
what I'm-
I understand that.
Okay.
I
So
just,
I just trying to lead towards Don's question as well, and to go back to Chris's, I can build that garage 3 times the size of the house if I don't want it to be a 2-family.
Right.
But because I want it to be a two-family, I have to make it conform to the neighborhood. But, you know, you're all aware, I built a big facility down the street. I built a big building. I can build that building. So all I'm looking for is the board's approval to make it, the interior, a second family. That's all. It's not that I'm looking for the board's approval to build this structure, because I'm not. I can have a building permit right away. It's for the interior, and the reason is for fire separation, because you have to build a firewall between the two structures. That's why. Just so you understand.
Chris, am I missing something in the bylaw that says you're allowed to build a multifamily in the R district?
Is there something in our bylaws?
That says,
Yes.
A one and two family.
Yeah, you can build in Norfolk, you're allowed to build 1 and 2 family. You can't build 3 and 4 family, but you can build 1 and 2 family in Norfolk. Yeah, in our bylaws.
so if you can build a 1 or 2 family, why do you have to even,
Come before us.
yeah,
Because this is the town actually had a conversion and probably when the bylaws were first written, there was a lot of people who actually at the time had in-laws, parents living with them, and did convert them. And there are some 2 families out there that people don't even know are 2 families that were converted prior to the bylaws.
Okay.
By people, and then they're obviously their parents died or passed away, and so they still exist out there.
And I'll give you an instance. I grew up in the house right across the street on Seekonk Street. You don't know it's a two-family. At 116 Seekonk Street, we took a 2-car garage and made it an apartment for my grandmother and built a 3-car garage. You drive by it, you don't know it's a two-family. It's a two-family. It's probably one of only 7 in this town, okay? It doesn't have any characteristic changes. We took the 2-car garage, made an apartment, built a 3-car because now we had my grandmother. So just so you know.
Also, I presume that what this bylaw does, it says that this is not a situation where somebody's building a two-family, this is a situation where somebody's converting a single family to a two-family, and it says that you can do it, but in order to do it, you need to go get a special permit to do it.
You gotta do it.
So
Because
the guy next
they were
door-
worried about it happening.
Can I see Attorney DeLuca's comments? Who's
I have
that?
them right here. Do you
It's-
want them?
I just find it a little bit confusing that, so the way I understand it is, if that dwelling wasn't there, and it was just an empty lot,
Right.
Mr. Brogan could construct a 2-family
He could get a
dwelling.
building permit, he could ask for a building permit to construct a 2-family home there.
That would meet all the
And he
requirements.
would not have to come to this board.
Okay.
Right, but it would have to pass a whole bunch of planning board requirements, too.
Oh, same as this, he still has to.
Right, he just needs a special permit for a
Right,
two-family.
right.
Right.
But this isn't new construction, this is a conversion, thus requiring a special permit.
Just clarify, I heard the word firewall a couple times. What's the clarification on that for firewall?
Again, that's,
Okay.
It's building.
I don't want to get into it too much because
Yeah.
that's a building code issue.
Okay,
If he's going to do a 2-family, he has to have a firewall
okay,
So-
between the two,
between the 2 structures.
the two
Correct.
structures.
It's actually a fire barrier. I'm
Right.
sorry.
No, I
For the-
understand that, but I was gonna say-
Yes, it's for fire, so that one can't get into the other dwelling
Right.
within an hour.
Right. But
Just
the
so-
dwelling, it's all attached.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Other questions?
So this is just, if I'm intuiting this correctly, you're just trying to be efficient?
I am.
And you just
I'm
by
sorry,
coming-
but yes,
No, no, no,
that's
and I
exactly what I'm
understand now, is
trying
that
to
you could
do.
do this anyway.
I-
You could build it, you could come back and request the permit for the conversion, which would meet all the bylaw requirements, but at that point, you would have to go back into what you've already built and retrofit it to be a 2-family unit, which, whatever my feelings are on 2 families in any neighborhood in town, anything like that, it's more efficient to do it this way.
That's all I'm, I should have built the garage first, honestly.
I mean,
I
be
should
honest
have built
with
the
you, I think
structure.
Devin's seen my house. I have put an addition on my home. It's got a huge garage underneath, all steel construction, and the upstairs has a huge bedroom, it has a huge bathroom, it has closets. And my thought was long ago when I built it, if God only knows the economy failed, my son had to move in, I could actually turn that into a 2-family, and I could live in that section, and he could have my main house. And it actually has the firewall, it's all constructed as if I wanted to do that. It won't happen, but I mean, I did it just for that purpose, thinking ahead that maybe someday, if the world did, if something happened, I would have to do it. And my house, if you looked at it, you would say, it's not a two-family home. It doesn't look like a two-family home, but it actually has all the characteristics that would allow me to make it a two-family home if I so choose. So I think the bylaw was done years ago when we had elderly parents. People were moving into Norfolk with their younger people, and the town was trying to make sure they did keep some controls on people turning single-family homes into homes with apartments. If you look in a lot of other surrounding towns, Millis, Franklin, there's a lot of single-family homes that were just converted, no special permits, they just did it. And Millis has a lot of them, Franklin has even more. So I think Norfolk was trying to be proactive at the time, and that's why they put this provision in, is my take on it.
Yep.
Okay?
And last question. There's no demolition of the existing structure, right?
None.
No, okay.
Taking the siding off where it connects, that's it.
Right, understood. I know you said, I was just asking one more time. Thank you.
Every window stays in.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Other questions?
I'm just curious, the door from the bedroom going into the other structure?
Yeah, he put that as an option because more than likely my eldest son is going to live in the apartment, and that's his mother, so. Again, it's,
I'm just curious.
he put it as an option. Again, it would become a fire door, but yes.
Any other questions? Any questions from the public?
A few. Can we pass a packet out to the board, please? A packet to the board?
Can you pass a packet out?
Yes, just some information we'd like to share with you.
Sure.
It's up to you, if you don't want it.
No, you can, if you have some information for us.
Okay. It's really just one bylaw and our present bylaws is what's in the packet.
Thank you. Very good.
Have you given a copy of this to the applicant?
No, I have not.
Okay. Why don't you tell us what we have here?
Chair.
Well, basically what we have is, at the last meeting on August 15th, there was some information exchange that I don't believe was 100% factual. The question really is, does 9 Fruit Street meet the zoning bylaw requirements for a special permit? That's the question before all of us. The first requirement to evaluate, to make this decision, is written in our bylaw, and it's asking, is 9 Fruit Street, was it in existence at the time of the adoption of this bylaw? And that's bylaw E2F. The meeting that we held on August 15th, when Mr. Brogan shared the outline of the structure he wants to build, the addition, Mr. Weeder mentioned, and I can bring this up on YouTube, and you can see it during the meeting, or I can read it to you, whatever you prefer. Just quote it. Okay. Mr. Weeder stated, this is a bylaw on our books that allows the conversion of a single-family home prior to the adoption of our bylaws, which was 1953. That doesn't change the character of the neighborhood, and it allows for a minimum of 1,800 square feet per single family, etc. Probably 5 minutes later, Mr. Brogan states the bylaw was written in 1963. Mr. Weeder responds, okay. Mr. Brogan states, you can look it up. 63, the bylaw was changed, not 53. So I think right off the bat we have some confusion as to when the bylaw was actually passed.
I think I'll clear that one up quickly, is that the building commissioner has already weighed in on the bylaw issue and has said that the house was constructed prior to the bylaw with regard to a two-family. And I think that was at one of the prior meetings, Mr. Bullock stated that.
So was the bylaw passed in 1953 or 1963?
Actually, I think the bylaw that we were referencing is 1968, is actually the bylaw that Bob Bullock actually says is the official bylaw. So this was constructed prior to 68. It was
The
not the
house-
53 bylaw. We've already, that's been addressed many times in town, and I think Mr. Bullock has said it was 1968 is the actually official bylaws that the town goes by.
So you're telling me that the original bylaw, which was written in 1945, which you have in front of you,
Yep,
which are our first zoning bylaws,
yeah,
that address this very fact,
yeah. These have been updated many times since 1945.
well, they've been amended,
Yes.
but the bylaw has never been rescinded and rewritten. And in fact, if you look at the 2008 zoning bylaws, this day, it will say bylaws adopted in 1953.
They say 1953, but the building commissioner has already weighed in on this. And the bylaw he's referencing is our current bylaws, which we use is 1968. Okay?
Well, I guess we need some proof of that. We just can't be
No,
told that.
we've already received information. The building commissioner has told us that. Okay? What other issues, you've given us a copy of the E2F.
So
Right, I
is
just gave those to, for your own use.
Okay, yes, we have that, okay.
so is Mr. Bullock saying that the bylaw was adopted in 1968?
Or we have, not adopted. Bylaw, the official bylaws of the town of Norfolk are 1968.
But the bylaw reads, at the time of the adoption of this bylaw. So the first bylaw was adopted in 1945. So what I'm asking is this bylaw that he's referring to of 1966, was this adopted in 1968? Excuse me, was this adopted in 1968, or was it amended? Because the bylaw specifically says adopted, when it was first adopted.
We have asked.
So I don't want to play words here.
We don't want to play words. We've asked
Right.
the building commissioner. The building commissioner said the home existed prior to the bylaws, and that's what we'll use as our guide. Plain and simple.
Existed when this bylaw was adopted.
The building commissioner, I'll restate it again. We're not going to play wordsmithing. The building commissioner at the first meeting addressed the bylaw adoption date, and he said this home was in existence prior to the bylaw.
That's
Therefore,
not the way
it
the bylaw reads.
Excuse me. Therefore, it qualified for the single home conversion.
Well, I just hate to see this board make a decision on flawed information.
On what?
On flawed information, because,
It's not flawed information. It came from our building commissioner. So that's it, okay?
so the building commissioner can override a bylaw? Is that what
The
you're
building
saying?
commissioner is the zoning enforcement agent, so we have to rely on his expertise. And at the first meeting, he addressed this bylaw issue. Okay?
It leaves a lot of questions out there.
Is there any other questions?
There actually is. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because Mr. Brogan brought it up. He mentioned the house across from Run and Gun Ranch is where he grew up. And the assessment card on that shows that the house was built.
Karen, I'm going to stop you. Does that have, this hearing is a special permit for 9 Fruit Street. Does anything with regard to the house Mr. Brogan grew up in have anything to do with the special permit for this project?
What it shows you is that this house across the street from
But
Run
is
and
that,
Gun Ranch.
that has nothing to do with 9 Fruit Street.
Well, it does, because it shows that the Brogans built a house in 1975. They put an addition on it in 1999, and it was called a two-family. Now, why didn't that apply to the 1968
That has
bylaw?
nothing to do with.
It does have something
It has
to do
nothing
with
to do
it.
with this hearing.
We're getting
No, it has
mixed
nothing to do with
messages.
this hearing. If you have an issue with the house that Mr. Brogan grew up at, you're more than welcome to take that up with the building commissioner. But it has nothing to do with the hearing with regard to 9 Fruit Street.
Well, it just shows the multiple answers we've gotten to our questions. First, it was passed in 53, then it was passed in
But it has nothing-
63,
the-
then it was passed in
I
68.
already gave you the answer. The building commissioner sat at this hearing, and he already told us that the house was in existence prior to the bylaw.
But he never gave a
That
date,
was it.
Mr. Weeder. He never gave a date.
My records show that it was 1968 is the date he gave us.
Well,
Was
then
the
why-
Was the bylaw which he referenced.
Well, then why did you
That's it.
say 1953 on August 15th?
Because August.
Why did Mr. Brogan say
Because in 1953 was the
1963?
first official bylaws that we reference a lot of times. We don't reference the 45s ever. And so I referenced the 53. But Mr. Bullock was here, and Mr. Bullock referenced 1968. He is our enforcement agent. That is the bylaw we go by.
So if I listen to the very first meeting, when Mr. Bullock was here, I will hear 1968.
You will hear Mr. Bullock state that, correct?
And if I don't, will this board reconsider?
Will this board reconsider what?
Its vote tonight, because clearly you're in favor of this two-family.
Wait a minute, who said that?
Well, no one said it, but
Who said
the
that?
writing's pretty much on the wall.
There's no writing on the wall. This board has, this board, well, okay. Do you have any other questions?
I guess not, Mr.
Okay.
Well, I do. As
Thank
far as the term conversion and addition, if I'm converting my attic and take a building permit, I don't say I'm getting a permit for an addition, I'm getting a permit for conversion. I think you're really stretching the words of this bylaw using conversion and including addition. They're in two totally different parts of the dictionary. Look up conversion, look up addition. The bylaw specifically states conversion. An addition is not a conversion. You can spin it however you want, but that's the fact.
Thank you.
If the board would like this paperwork, I'd be more than happy to share it with them. A conversion is the act of converting, the process of being converted. An addition is the part added as to a building or residential section. The addition expanded the kitchen. The addition didn't convert the kitchen, it expanded the kitchen. Used in a sentence, the act, I apologize, I don't have it in a sentence. But this is the definition of addition. This is other paperwork that I found while I was researching. Tips and ideas for garage conversion, not an addition, conversion. Attic conversion, regulations and requirements. What Mr. Brogan is building is an addition, not, he's not converting space that's existing in that home.
As I mentioned earlier, we asked town council to weigh in on this. They did weigh in on this, and they did say that it is appropriate. Excuse me. Okay, Karen? We weighed in, we asked town council, they said it's appropriate. There are many definitions to conversion. This board weighed in on a special permit 2 years ago, which there is a definition of conversion says that you can remove and rebuild. And that follows the definition of conversion. It was overridden by the building commissioner, who said no, he would not allow it on a similar property.
The attorney also said that.
But that's correct. So we have many definitions of conversion, but we've asked town council to weigh in on it. He saw no problem with this, short of it being torn down. Okay? Now, you have a question?
Yes, the email between town council and you, Mr. Weider, back on October 18th, when Mr. DeLuca weighed in on this, he referred to Mass General Law 48 S6. Now, if you read that in its entirety, that is referring to properties that are on non-conforming lots or non-conforming properties. That's what that is addressing as far as additions and this and that. So I think it's a real stretch to throw this situation, which does not play into that. It's on a conforming lot. As the home stands now, it's conforming. What this law that Mr. DeLuca is leading up to was saying that you couldn't deny a special permit to a house that was on a non-conforming lot. That's, and he kind of put a stretch on it, I'm sorry, but that's, you know.
Our bylaw doesn't talk to non-conforming versus conforming with regard to this conversion.
I understand.
Do you have any
that.
other questions with regard to this special permit?
No, we just hope all the facts are out there.
Good. Any other
Mr. Chairman?
questions? 1 second. Yep.
No, Chris, look. Does this mean anything?
Hi, I'm Deborah
Just so you know,
Gersha
see this
from
table.
143 Seekonk Street. I'm thinking about putting a Freedom of Information Act request in to see when this bylaw actually was enacted by the town. So with my Freedom of Information Act request on the bylaw information, would I submit it through your board, and then it would get kicked up to town council?
No, you would actually submit it to the building commissioner.
Okay.
And she could, okay.
Town clerk?
Which asks for freedom of information? Yeah, that would be the town clerk.
Okay, thank you.
Actually, it would be Anthony Torrey, who is the What's his title? Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I have one more question I'd like to ask. So the board's position on this is that the zoning bylaws were rescinded and rewritten in 1968. Is that
The
what
board
I'm
didn't
ta-
say that.
what is the board saying then?
The board asked the building commissioner, and the building commissioner stated that, yes, this home was built prior to the adoption of the bylaw, so therefore it qualified for a special permit.
And you're telling me that the building commissioner stated 1968 at the meeting?
The building commissioner, I have in my notes 1968. So yes, to my recollection, the building commissioner did state that. I might be mistaken, but I remember the building commissioner clearly stating that this property was in existence prior to the passing of the bylaw and therefore qualified for the conversion, or else Mr. Brogan wouldn't be here today. If he built his house in 2018, he would not be sitting here today because obviously the house would not meet the minimum standards. And again, at the prior meetings we've had, this has never been an issue. The issue has been the addition. The addition has been a number of different things that people can find wrong with this property. That's what most of the comments have been. Now we're back to whether or not our bylaws are correct.
Well, the reason the basement was brought up is because it's in direct violation of our bylaws. That's the only reason that was a conversation.
That could be questioned, but yes. But we're not dealing with that any longer,
Correct.
all right?
Correct.
Okay.
So to the board's knowledge, is the board aware of any point in time, because, I mean, your job is to uphold the town bylaws.
Correct.
So are any of the board members, including yourself, Mr. Weeder, aware of a point in time, where our zoning bylaws were rescinded and rewritten?
I don't know what you're referring to with regard to rescinded. Do you want to give me your definition of rescinded?
It would be a set of bylaws that were rejected in entirety and rewritten.
I don't think our bylaws have ever been rejected in their entirety. But what does that have to do with this special permit?
What it has to do with this special permit is my understanding that the first set of zoning bylaws written for the town of Norfolk was 1945.
Okay.
You say you used 1953. Yes, it has been amended over the years. However, the wording in existence at the time of the adoption of this bylaw has never changed from 1945 to 2018. And that is a very significant sentence in that I interpret it that in 1945 this bylaw was adopted. Mr. Brogan's house was built in 1961, thus making it ineligible for a special permit. I did a lot of research in other towns, and generally the reason for passing such a bylaw, many towns, many surrounding towns and towns quite a distance from us have this bylaw. Some of them use a date, that if it existed prior to 1945, you could do it. Some said at the time of the adoption of the bylaw, and the purpose of such a bylaw was to allow people who owned large homes in the 1900s, large Victorians, large family homes, to, instead of tearing the home down, it gave those people the ability to turn it into a two-family, because people in this day and age do not need 5-bedroom homes, 10-bedroom homes, generally. That was the purpose of this bylaw. So truly, I find it hard to believe that without this bylaw being rescinded and rewritten, that the time of the adoption of this bylaw, in fact, was 1945 or 1953, whichever you want to use.
Or 1968, whatever Mr. Bullock stated.
Not unless it was
Again.
rescinded and rewritten.
Again, our building commissioner weighed in, and we'll take that up in our deliberations.
There's actually a Mass General law I'd like to read to you.
With regard to,
Adoption of bylaws.
okay, we're not worried about adoption of bylaws. Thank you.
Well, we should be. That's
Nope,
what
we
this
have
is all
bylaws.
about.
We know our bylaws. We're all set with them. We don't need to see any adoption of bylaws, thank you.
No, this is a Mass General law that deals
That's-
with
that's-
when the adoption of a bylaw is legal.
Thank you. We don't, it doesn't, we already had our building commissioner weigh in, okay?
People
If
do
you wanna-
make, he could be mistaken.
Excuse me,
Mr. Weeder, this is a Mass
Excuse me.
General law.
excuse me. If you don't like the bylaws, you should talk to the town planner and talk to the building commissioner. He's already weighed in on this.
Well, perhaps, like you say, he made a mistake, and the board, this is valuable information in Mass General law for the board to hear and make an educated decision. I think it's ludicrous that you won't allow me to read a Mass General
Well,
law
you've
to
given
this
me some
board.
definitions of conversions which don't tell me anything. So far, you haven't provided me with any information.
This is a
You've
Mass
given
General
me a
law.
copy of E2F, which I already have a copy of in our bylaws. So what are you providing the board now?
This is a Mass General law, Mr. Weeder.
What Mass General law are you citing for the board?
This is Chapter 40A, zoning, Section 5.
Okay?
The effective date of the adoption or amendment of any zoning ordinance or bylaw shall be the date on which such adoption or amendment was voted upon by a city council or town meeting. So the date of adoption of that bylaw was 1945.
Yeah, but what about amendments, though?
Amendments are the date that they're accepted.
All right.
Well,
By the Attorney
So,
General.
well, I guess the question then becomes one of, does an amendment bring forward the date at which the bylaw is now effective?
No, it doesn't. It-
Says who?
It brings forward the amendment. So if the amendment was passed in 1971, from that period forward, the amendment is in effect. However, the initial bylaw, unless it is rescinded and rewritten in its entirety,
Does
Stays in
Chapter
effect.
40A state that it must be rescinded and rewritten in its entirety?
Does Amy have a copy of the, Amy, do you have a copy of the?
No, I'm just asking you. I'm just
What
asking you.
what would happen is every time there was an amendment made to any bylaw within the town, anything that was grandfathered under that, then what you're saying is would be moved up. So
That's
it-
exactly what my
Chris.
question is.
Yeah, I mean, it's what's good for one would be good for all. So if you amend a bylaw in 2019, does that mean everything now is, that grandfather clause moves up for everything up to 290?
That's exactly my question.
And I think, and that's why I just asked it, for this board to make an educated decision, I think those questions need to be answered.
But
and
nobody's
not-
answered that question yet, right?
Correct. Well,
I mean, Bob Bullock has.
Amy, do you have the minutes from the initial hearing on your screen? Can you look back? All right, do you have any other questions?
no, Mr. Weeder, thank you.
Okay.
Chris, can I ask you a question? On the second page of our bylaws, it does say adopted March 16th, 1953. Why would, it's just a little bit confusing,
This is why
or at the top.
he's saying that the bylaw should be.
As amended, right, 1969, then he amended, right.
It's kind of loose, though.
So the question is, why does this adoption in 1961 allow that?
Why does this say adopted March 16th?
Well, it's giving you a history of it. So it says when it's first adopted,
Right.
but then as amended, as amended, as amended, as amended. The question is, do these amendments affect these start dates or end dates, or what, does it affect
Well,
that?
my question's more geared towards, does that adopted March 16th, 1953 refer to the adoption of this bylaw?
I guess the best answer would be we should probably, again, revisit that issue. I hate to say it with Mr. Bullock, to find out what made him feel that 68 was the official date. My understanding is it was, and that's when the town actually sat down and actually reviewed their bylaws and said, these are our bylaws. But I won't speak for Bob Bullock, and I'll review it with him, and we can verify that. He did tell us, he did review it, he did say the house existed prior to that, the official bylaws, which I think they refer to as 68, I might be off, but we could certainly ask him that question.
I do think it's a question that needs to be asked, because just seeing that
Nope.
there is a little bit.
You know, absolutely, we can ask that question. And that way we can put this to bed once and for all. I think that's probably the best solution unless the board,
I agree.
okay?
I agree.
Fine. Mike, do you have any?
No, why don't we just get that date cleared up,
Yep.
and then we can move on.
We'll clear it up with Mr. Bullock. And again, Mr. Bullock being the zoning enforcement officer, we'll ask him the question, and whatever he tells us, that will be the answer. Okay?
Will there be another meeting for a vote?
Yeah, we obviously can't close the public hearing until we get all the information. So we will review that with Mr. Bullock. Okay?
When do we want to move this to?
Mr. Chairman, I move to continue the public hearing for 9 Fruit Street to
January 16th?
January, what date do we want to put down?
January 16th, 2 weeks, right?
Yes, let's put it on the agenda. We have Abbeville on the 16th as well.
Is another comment?
That's usually a full night.
Well,
Yeah.
this shouldn't be.
This should be,
By that
Quick
point,
question?
It's a quick question.
Yeah, okay, all right, so January 16th at
A quick,
well, we 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock?
should we,
7 o'clock?
before we do that, we have another comment from the audience.
That's KP Middle School.
We have one more question?
I'm sorry, I have one more question.
Yeah.
Cindy Taman, 117 Seekonk. When you talk to the building inspector, are you going to have something in writing so that the public can look at that and
We will ask the building commissioner to put in writing, of course,
Thank
just
you.
as we did with Dave DeLuca's comments.
and cite why he's saying that, just like an attorney would? I mean, if he's saying that 1968 is the date that he's using as the enforcement date, then we should be able to know why he's doing that.
Clearly. Okay?
Thank you.
Mike, sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, same here, sorry.
Okay, so, going to repeat the motion?
Yes, please.
I move to continue the public hearing for 9 Fruit Street to January 16th at 7 o'clock PM at the KP Middle School.
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
It's at KP Middle School?
Yes. Any discussion? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Brogan. We will see you on the 16th. All right. We have some, Amy, you've given us some minutes. December 20th minutes. Could everybody take a look at the December 20th minutes?
Amy. Spell it out means you have to spell it out.
These are hot off the press.
Okay. Okay.
Public informational,
Yeah, process is a public information process.
Is that what it is?
Stop, but I wasn't sure, so.
public information process, okay?
So that's why I said Bob Bullock is really the one who has to provide us that. My notes had 1968, but we'll address it with Bob again.
Should that question be bounced off town council also?
No, we'll ask the building commissioner.
Is there a chance he can come to our meeting?
I mean, it's been addressed before, I just don't have the bylaw in front of me, but we've addressed it before. If I had the bylaw in front of me, it probably would have been easier, but we didn't have it in front of us, so we'll let the building commissioner obviously put it in writing. 'Cause-
So is the presumption that these bylaws are effective as adopted and amended?
Yeah.
So
And I
the-
think-
so amendments.
I think it gets down to when in Norfolk officially, they had bylaws, but when they officially adopted their bylaws, and my understanding was that was 68. You know,
Well-
they existed in 53, but they were not officially sat at a town meeting and adopted. And so that's why I think he refers to 68 as the date.
Okay, well, that's a different issue. That's a different issue entirely, but
We'll let Bob weigh in on that.
I think we should have it in our bylaw.
Huh?
I said, I think we should have it where it says adopted at the top
Yeah.
page.
Well, there's always been issues with the way our bylaws show up here.
But then the-
Every
but
time
then
we
the-
have one of these type of hearings, it becomes an issue, is when is the official bylaw date of the town of Norfolk?
Well, and the other question would be, the next logical question is what is the effect of the initial adoption date? What is the effect of that date when that bylaw is amended?
Yeah.
Does that date now move?
I don't think it ever moves.
I don't
think the key-
know.
I think the key is the clarification.
Why do you say?
No, the clarification is when was it officially adopted?
Right.
Because having bylaws voted on
Yeah.
at town meetings and, accepted at a
Yeah.
town meeting, and when they're officially adopted, could be two different things. We don't have that information right now.
So the answer to my question is no. So my question
I'm just saying, I
was-
don't think that amendments will move the date out to say that now.
And again, my question to you, though, would be is, why do you say that?
No, I'm just saying that there may be a specific date by which the bylaws
No,
were
you made a
adopted.
statement. You said, I don't think it changes. And my question to you was, why do you say that?
I think the word adoption, I think adoption and the date that it's adopted is the critical point.
I understand what you're saying. What I don't know is why you're saying it. Or
Well,
what-
let's get that clarification.
Yeah, exactly. That's the point.
Right, but I think the big issue at hand here is we don't have the adoption date clarified. Some
That-
people
that-
say,
that's-
some people
that's a
say
different issue.
53, some people say 68.
And that's a different issue. You don't
Right,
know when your
but
bylaws
I-
adopted.
But we can be amending bylaws for the next 20 years.
And we
We're
will, be.
not Right, but we're suddenly not going to go back and say that, no, these houses are available to be converted to families. That's what I'm saying. I think that adoption date is a stick in the sand. I think we'll find
It's
that
just a
out.
question of where the stick is.
That's what I'm saying. I think that's what we're looking for. And we don't know if the stick is 1953 or 1968.
Right.
That's what I'm saying. I think we just need clarification.
And clearly, moving forward, as we are looking at making changes to our bylaws, we need to tighten up this
And
bylaw.
that's a recommendation.
Yeah.
That's in that.
I mean,
We're aware of that. Okay, let's get back to the minutes, so we don't,
Okay, has everyone had a chance? I'll make a motion. Everyone ready?
there's one typo, if you want me to mention it.
Please.
go ahead.
On page 2 of 4, very top line, beginning with the sentence saying public roadways being reduced, it says form, which should say from.
Good catch, Counselor.
Shall I hand the bill directly to Amy, or do I?
Okay, do I have a motion to accept the meetings of December 20th,
As amended.
as amended by Mr. Luciano, so cleverly?
So make a motion that we accept the minutes of December 20th, 2018 as amended per comments about the spelling on page 2 of 4.
I'll second it.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Very good. Amy, do you want me to sign this copy, or actually, it's Don?
You want me to sign?
Joe's gonna sign it.
But you can have this job when you want.
Okay.
Okay, now we have, we're not done yet?
We're not done yet? You can't go home?
Particularly,
Oh, she writes this.
I told you I'd have you in bed by 8:30, not
All
any
right.
earlier.
All right.
Amy, Rich was gonna come, but he's not here, but...
No, I think that was a misunderstanding.
Okay. Amy's provided us with a draft copy of rules and regulations required by Section 12 of Chapter 40 for our board, the Zoning Board of Appeals. Could everybody just take a look at that over the next couple of weeks? And we'll look at these in earnest with the town planner in one of our February meetings. Did we identify a date in February when we look at these?
Yeah, I think he said.
Something about February 6th comes to my mind.
Yeah, I think February 6th was the date we were going to.
Okay, so your homework is to review these, and we'll discuss them further on February 6th.
Mr. Chairman, what's the difference between the...
This is the old copy, this is the original copy with the changes, correct, Amy?
The yellow?
The yellow copy?
That's right, the original with the changes, and
Right.
then the other copy is the completed version with all the changes incorporated.
Oh, okay.
The completed one still has some highlighted areas that are determined that they should be taken out and rewritten.
It's a lot lighter, I noticed that.
It's a good thing.
Okay, great.
So it doesn't include all the charges, the fees. That's why this is so light.
Yeah.
So take a look at that, and we'll review it on February 6th. Good. Any other business the board would like to bring up? Okay. Do I have a motion to close the zoning board of appeals meeting of January 2nd, 2019 at 7:58 PM?
So moved.
Second.
Second it?
All those in favor? Thank you very much. Have a good evening.